All right, it's time for another episode of Go Talk. Today I have Brady from Brady's Blunders. Hey, Brady.
Hey Kevin, how are you today?
Doing all right. Brady runs a really fun little YouTube channel where he goes over mistakes that he's made in his game. They're pretty small, 15-minute chunks sometimes, I think.
Yeah, most of them, except for when I'm talking about the thing we're not talking about in this episode.
AlphaGo.
Yeah.
But yeah, today for our episode, we're gonna do a bunch of questions that you, not readers, listeners, or viewers, I guess, depending. Spoiler alert. But that you've sent in, and thanks again for sending these in. We'll be going through all of them, and Brady will be giving his opinion on some of them, and it'll be great, hopefully. So, you ready, Brady?
Fire away.
All right, question number one. What reading materials would you personally recommend for newbies? You want to go, or you want me to go?
Sure. I think I know where you're headed with this one, so why don't I go first and actually answer the question? And it depends what kind of books you want. I know when I was a beginner at Go, I kind of liked the chatty books, books that told you how to think. And if you're that kind of person who really likes an explanation, not just problem and answer, but whole chapters on thickness and so on, I I really like Janice Kim's uh, books, the Learn to Play Go series, and I don't remember, it's like 5 or 6 books, and I think it does a great job of explaining a lot of the whys. But if you're someone who wants to just get into it, there's a wonderful problem book called Graded Go Problems for Beginners. And I think that's absolutely terrific too. It teaches you a lot of the same things, but it's much more direct and much less chatty.
Ah, cool, cool. Yeah, for me, I think the only book that I've seen, I think for utter newbies, there's a book called The Second Book of Go. It's by Richard Bozelich. That one's actually pretty good. I would recommend that if you're an utter newbie and you're just after you've understood the rules and you've played a few games, you want to just understand a little bit more about the world and sort of the things you might have to keep in mind. But I would say for newbies, the biggest thing is just to play more games. You're gonna get more out of just playing a bunch of games and interacting with the board than you are gonna be just being, I guess, book smart on it. Sadly enough, that it does apply to all levels, and it's something I sort of neglect. But there's that. You ready for question two, or you have something else?
No, let's go.
All right, question number two. What are some really good books? Sorry, let's start that over. What are some really good Go books you'd recommend, preferably in English? I'll start with this one.
Okay.
I basically only I've had a bunch of Go books, and I don't read any of them, much to my wallet's dismay. So the things I've learned from about good Go books is, first of all, you get something closer to your level. If you are a 10Q or 5Q, don't immediately rush out to buy the one don books or the uh, one don problem books and stuff like that. Stick to something that you know. The easiest way you can say to do this is you choose a life and death book where you know what the answer is. Maybe it just takes you 5 to 10 seconds. And if you can solve those, solve them until you finish them really quickly. What that means is that when you're done with the book, you start over and you just go through that same book again, so that when you look down, you instantly know what the answer is. That helps out. When also the other thing is when people say life and death, much to my surprise, when people say life and death in at least Chinese and Japanese and Korean, they actually mean life and death and Tsuji. They don't mean just life and death. So definitely get a Tsuji book, a life and death book, and maybe a joseki book. And on that same note, joseki, I'm sure eventually someone will ask this question, but joseki, learn the simple ones first. Don't go into the 30 move uh, flying Tsuji, not flying Tsuji, magic sword Tsuji that depends on the ladder in the semi lower left corner. Do the 2 or 3 move Joseki and then move your way up. It's all relative, but do the ones that are easiest to you first.
You're getting ahead, Kevin. That's the next
There's
question.
Oh yeah, there is that, isn't there? But what about you? What are some good Go books that you recommend?
Just like you were saying, I think the ones that turn out to be the most useful are problem books. And to that end, the Mastering the Basics series from Casado and the Get Strong at Go series from Casado, I think are both great. The Mastering the Basics includes things like 501 opening problems, 1001 life and death problems, and Tsuji problems, and so on. One book I particularly liked within that series is Making Good Shape. And I don't see that book getting a lot of love, but I really liked it. And the other one that I really love, and I know is extremely popular, is Kageyama's, Kageyama's Lessons in the Fundamentals of Go.
Mm,
And I mentioned at the beginning that I like chatty books,
yeah.
and that book he tells stories of his life, tell stories of how he learned Go, but he also teaches you some of the fundamentals of Go, and I think it's a terrific book.
Cool, cool. Yeah. I guess on the topic of chatty books, there's a few that I really like. There's the late Nakayama, Noriyuki Nakayama. He did one called The Treasure Chest Enigma. Let me say that again in case that wasn't clear. Treasure Chest Enigma. That one has a great story about a famous Go problem that he came up with. That I think his thing was if you can solve it within 5 to 10 minutes, you're 5Q, but if you can't solve it, you're a pro, which is strange. And it actually happened at the Houston Go Congress in 2003, where some pros looked at it and they thought, "Is this actually a life and death problem?" And they couldn't even figure it out. Something about some strange blind spot that occurred, which was actually
Mm.
pretty interesting. Guo has actually a nice chatty book about her experiences being in the Go world when she was a kid, and I think the Shusaku book, the beginning part where it's about the biography of Shusaku is pretty interesting, but that might be a tall order just for a biography. But if you like the games of Shusaku or just think, oh, Hikaru no Go, I should buy this, then yeah, I'd go for it. But yeah, there's
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, I made the mistake of buying Invincible when I was 15Q because it was the best English language Go book there is.
Yeah,
And I tried, but I was 15Q. I wasn't going to understand the games of Shisaku,
yeah,
and it didn't work for me.
yeah. I think that's a lot of the books where they were either above me or there were just so many words I just fell asleep. Uh, Another famous book. There's a I think it's in the Elementary Go series or something. It's called Attack and Defense. It's a red book. Uh, One of the first times I started, one of the Chinese people in my clubs at that time, I guess it was early 2000s, that was the one singly really good Go book that he's ever read. I read it and fell asleep, but you never know. It's I did look over it and it's got good stuff, but I mean, for me, playing and really just playing is more interesting. So
You're a tough audience. That
I
was a
am
really good book.
I am a
It was a
very
good book.
tough audience. Oh, also, there's a Kazunari Furuyama did a I think it's like it's a program it's a problems for Dawn and it involves joseki. I'll We'll put links underneath in case you're interested, or if you're interested, we'll send you links. But he does that. He goes through common joseki mistakes. I think it's volume two because one was written by someone else, but it's also really good. I'd really recommend that if you're in the mood for reading, which I'm not. Yeah. So you good? Yeah.
Good to go.
All right. Question number three. How many joseki do Dawn players know? So Brady, how many joseki do you know?
I have no idea how many Joseki I know. Uh, Most of the commonly seen ones that you see on the servers, a lot of 4-4, high approach to 3-4. And the thing of it is, I I would give advice rather than a straight up answer to this question,
Right.
where the question is, how many do you know? And the answer is, I've never really studied Joseki.
Much too.
Uh,
Yeah.
I've never opened a book and said, I'm going to learn this Joseki today. And instead, the way I've learned Joseki is I learn them when they go wrong. Like my opponent plays something and I misplay it, or I think I'm playing a Joseki and he plays something that I don't know how to handle, and then things go horribly awry.
Right.
And that's how I learned Joseki because it's sort of the pain principle, right? So it goes really, really bad. Then I look it up. What should I have played? And from that point on, I kind of know it. So that's the way I've learned most of the Joseki that I know.
Yeah. I'm sort of the same way. I would actually say if I had to give a definite number, I'd say I know about 40 to 50 joseki, and the rest I sort of just improvise. There's a huge there's two schools of thought, I would say. I'm not gonna name names, but one school of thought is you memorize joseki as much as you can. I remember when I was like, a few years ago, not a few, 10 some odd years ago, one teacher was just like, "You're young, you've got the brain power. Go memorize a bunch of joseki and figure them out later." And I if you understood from me hating how to read, then you're not gonna understand that I probably hate how to memorize as well. So yeah, so I decided not to do that. The other school of thought is, uh, they explained it as joseki is a perfect move, and when things go wrong and you don't know how to respond to them, well, you're sort of screwed. So you don't want to always do joseki. Do something you're comfortable with. Do something that when you go into the situation, you know what you're trying to get out of it, and you play something that's there. As you get more comfortable with the situation, or you know more, you can probably play something different, or you can study the joseki. The funny thing is, you ask a pro how many joseki do you know, and they usually say, "I don't know joseki." So
Yeah, I think it comes back to, especially for Q players and even low down players like us, knowing direction of play, having an instinct for direction of play, and maybe a few principles of joseki is much more useful than knowing the actual joseki. There's so many times that once you learn a few joseki, you tend to play them, whether they're the correct choice or not.
Right.
Because you're comfortable with them, you have them memorized, and it's much better. If the top is bigger, play moves that help the top, even if they're not optimal, and you're going to be better off than playing a joseki where you jumped into the corner because that's what you knew.
Yeah, and that might speak to something else we're going to talk about, but yeah, I think if you just go into it and you don't play by reflex, like use them as uses some guidelines, as the Pirates of the Caribbean line goes. They're not really rules, just more like guidelines of how to play. But yeah, the other side of that is interesting, where the concept of knowing a joseki is actually a lot more complicated than I thought. My teacher once said, it's not just knowing that one variation line. It's knowing all different variation lines, all the different problems, and what to do if they misplay. If we were going to go by that definition, I don't know any joseki.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
But I think in the common way of thinking, oh, how many variations of a certain thing, I would say 40 to 50. And then, like I said, I improvise the rest because it goes off the rails so fast. And I think the other side of it is that it changes based on your situation. You might follow joseki to a certain point, and then you shouldn't, because the board is different. So you shouldn't always just say, "Oh, well, I'm going to play this joseki out." And it's just, like I said, just being conscious of what you're doing and not just following it out of reflex. Right? Right. Okay. Question number 4. What do you think is the best Go database? BIOS Go, smartgo, something else, or best Go database for studying fuseki positions or new moves in joseki? Which I guess that sort of goes with the previous question. Not to really do too much plugging, but I think the guy that I had as a previous guest, Anders Karolf, his smartgo thing is probably my recommended thing. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's the best out there, at least that I know of. When it came to Joseki, I used to use Daniel Smith's dailyjoseki.com,
Mm-hmm.
but that was based on the same library as Anders,
Yeah.
and hasn't been updated in the last couple of years. So Anders is more up to date. So I think it's just great. Plus, and it's got both Fuseki and Joseki.
Mm-hmm.
And I've used some of the online Joseki. There's Josekipedia, and there's the what's the other one called?
Kogos?
Yes, Kogos. And they're okay, but there are a lot of variations when they're just plain wrong.
Yeah.
So don't, it's okay to refer to them, but don't rely on them.
Yeah.
The advantage that smartgo has is that these are moves that pros actually played. I mean, that's how it builds its libraries, because these are moves that pros actually played, not something an amateur put into a Josekipedia.
Right. And I think the funny thing about that is I think at the recent Go Congress, I met Anders and I said, "Hey, when are you going to make a joseki dictionary?" And he says, "What are you talking about? I already have one." It's like I just use all of the you can do based in the app on the iPad or, on the I'm guessing on his actual computer, you can key in these moves and it'll search through all the databases and show you all the games that actually used it and also the surrounding situation, so okay, this is, in this situation 40% of the moves did games did this, or 20% did that, so on and so forth. So I would recommend smartgo. uh we're going to hopefully talk with Anders and get some more
And
information about that, but I think smartgo is a pretty good thing. What do you think?
and we apologize to Windows users. I don't think he's got the Windows version updated. I think it's Mac, various iOSs, but I'm not 100% certain of that.
I'm not sure. I'll hold his feet to the fire about that.
Okay.
But definitely, if anything, if you are an iOS user, I've said it before, but I heavily recommend smartgo Kifu. Um, yeah, I don't want to become an advertising thing, but you think it's expensive, but you just use that and it's forever and it's great. So I think it's a good investment.
And thank you for the question, Anders.
It was not Anders, but here's a question I have no idea how to answer. Maybe you do. What are the best opening moves on the 9x9 board?
Kevin, I'm going to need you to link for this one because someone compiled the best or the most common moves and winning percentages in
Wow.
9 by 9 on GoQuest, which is the 9 by 9 specific app.
Hmm.
And so it just took strong players' games, compiled what moves they play, and did a little encyclopedia of them. And so it turns out that the three most common opening moves in this order are the 5-4,
Hmm.
then the 4-4, and then Tengen.
The Tengen.
So and all of these have a greater than 50% winning rate for black, at least on GoQuest. And but the dictionary goes a lot further, and it's by and sorry, my Japanese is non-existent, but it's by a player who calls himself Utakamoku,
Otaka.
uh,
Yeah. The
and
high
you'll
13.
link to it, right? It was on Life and by 1919, and I'll give you the link.
You'll give me the link and we'll find it. It's all down there somewhere.
It's really quite cool. Just don't use it while playing. That's cheating.
I'm surprised. Do you still play a lot of 9x9? I don't.
I never used to play 9 by 9, but I've actually found myself in the last 6 months playing quite a bit of it because of GoQuest. It's just easy. If I've got 10 minutes, just log in and play, or even just log in and watch a game every once in a while.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, I remember beginners would show up and we always said, hey, the best way to learn is through 9x9. And I guess that is true. I don't know.
I still
But
think it might be. I still think it might be true at my level.
yeah, I mean, yeah, what's the famous line? It's like you should play 9x9 until like some rank. Was it one dan? No. It was
I
some
don't know.
rank, then you can switch to 19x19 really easily. But
I think it's really useful.
it is for both like learning and just being aware of certain things, I guess. So okay, the next group of questions. One person wanted tournament stories of frequent tournament players. I guess that could be us or anybody else we know. Do you have any good ones?
Well, I wasn't quite sure if this question was looking for guidance or a story. And I mean, if I was going to give guidance, it would be relax. You're not a professional. You're not doing this for a living. Have fun. And if you find yourself getting, really wound up into the game, get up and walk around because it's really hard to concentrate. These tournament games go longer than the standard club games.
Yeah.
So, but just chill. You'll have fun. Don't worry so much. You're not a
Yeah.
pro.
What's his name? Michael Chen. I think he's a high Don player. He would always get up, and I asked him about that. I mean, like, why do you do that? And he's like, oh, inspiration. He looks at other people's games. It clears his head a little. Then one of the funny stories about in terms of guidance was that my one of the pros when I was really early in, he said you always concentrate on the board. Like if this is board, I stare right at that. He says, sit back, back straight and look at the whole board. And it's like, does that help? And it's like, can't hurt because you're just so focused on it. And you see a lot of the stronger players. They do get up and move around.
Hmm.
They relax a little. I mean, even in the famed AlphaGo matches, Lee Sedol got up, took a
Hmm.
smoke break, and came back. Now don't I'm not advocating people smoke, but relax.
Yeah, and I actually did a video on that back in December, which was like my worst game ever, my worst loss ever, and it was because I had a completely one position, and then just screwed it up, and then I went on tilt, and so I went from an easily won game to throwing away the whole game, which even if it was just terrible. So yeah, if I'd gotten up and walked away, it wouldn't have happened.
And then, in terms of stories, I have a story. It doesn't involve me. It involves a friend of mine, and this involves the U.S. Go Congress. I think before even I showed up, but with the Ing Bowls. If you don't know what the Ing Bowls, they're these crazy contraptions with springs and there are these crazy contraptions with springs and such, and stones can get caught, and you have to fix them, and it's a pain in the butt. And so this person had to sit opposite someone, and some stones were stuck, and they had to be fixed. So the opponent grabbed a knife and started poking around, and then proceeded to accidentally cut his hand, which was great because he was also playing white. So he'd play these moves, and it was his playing hand, which makes it even more funny. So playing these moves, and then my friend just really didn't want to take the stones off the board because who wants to pick up a bloody white stone? Not me, and not my friend. So we always call it the bloody stone Tsuji because now don't do this. But if you ever go to a Go Congress or a big Go event and you see these Zing Bowls, be very careful because you can injure yourself, and don't do the bloody stone Tsuji.
Don't bring a knife to a Go game.
Yeah, don't bring a knife to a Go game. Um, so there's that. Do you have any other stories?
Oh, I can't match that, but I guess the story I would tell comes again with a little bit of a moral. And this was several years back, and I was playing a game with a nice old man, and uh, and he played a stone, and then he leaned back, and then he leaned forward, and he moved the stone. So I mean, he just completely made his play, and then moved it.
All right.
And I was like, you can't do that. And he's like, do what? And I said, you moved the stone. He says, I did not. And I said, what do you mean you did not? I said, you played here and then you moved it here. And then he said, nobody would play there. And I was like, of course nobody would play there, but you did. And I got really uptight. And the people around me were like, sorry, buddy, can't help you. And the lesson from that is when something like that happens, call the tournament director.
Yeah,
And I
that's
didn't do that. And even, I'm sure the tournament director would have said, sorry, no witnesses. Why don't you just play on? And sorry about that. But that would have given me time to cool down. And this was another game where I went on tilt for a while. But the nice ending to the story is I did manage to win. And the key sequence in winning that game was going back and capturing that stone that he played, that he moved. So I felt like there was justice in the end. So it was all okay.
yeah. I think relax is very
Anyway, call the tournament director if you
yeah.
need it.
But I think the other side of that is always also just relax. I mean, these are you want to do well, you want to play well, but there are just be relaxed about the game. It is very easy to take it very seriously. I know at the last Go Congress, there was a kid who ended up crying over a lost game. I wasn't there to hear it, but or see it, but people talked about it, and uh, it's fine to be really serious about your games, but I think it's also just go into it and just enjoy the game and enjoy the experience. I think Keith Arnold, what he said in a previous interview about how the value of cleaning up the stones and just, you clean the slate and you talk about the game and you feel better about it almost immediately. It's sort of true. And I think to what he was saying about how you sort of miss that in the internet is sort of the same thing. So I think mostly just relax about the whole thing. So next question. This person said, see, would love to hear more about the philosophical side of Go, and also that he saw in a recent quote from Takemiya Masaki, the great Takemiya, about playing wherever you want, playing lightly instead of struggling to win. Let's start with a Takemiya quote because I have huge umbrage with that, and I think everyone loves to hear drama. There's enough people that I've heard who talk about this, and a lot of people who I think might take a different interpretation of this. They think it's just play whatever you want and just get stronger. And I think that has some merit to it, but has some problems. The reason I think that has problems is because Takemiya plays like Takemiya, and not many people can play it like it. If you don't know Takemiya, he plays what they say is a cosmic style of Go. He surrounds a ridiculous amount of territory such that his opponent has to come in and he kills him or fights him and gets more. Um, and this is a story, basically from one of the Go Congresses where he showed up. I think it was Portland. I raised my hand, asked him a question. I said, "What's the difference between someone's style and a bad habit?" For example, if I played like Takemiya, I get yelled at by my teacher, like, "Why are you doing this? Like, this is a bad habit. You need to probably stop." And Takemiya thought about it, and his response was lots of studying, lots of working at it. And I think the thing about this that sort of what Takemiya says is have fun playing Go, which is one thing, but playing what you want. Hey, cat.
Sorry, cat.
Bye, cat. But that was pretty cool. I was not expecting that. But I think the thing about that is, you can play these moves and you can play what you want, and playing to win is one thing, and playing what you want is another one. But definitely play in a conscious effort the move that gets you the win, that you're trying to explore something and you can defend it. Don't just say, "Oh, I play there just because I wanted to." You should still have a good reason. It was this, like, be it, this seemed risky, but it seemed like it would be interesting and it would work. And then try and learn from it. Just to say, "Oh, I was playing whatever I wanted because Takemiya said so," less so. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think it's good advice, but I think people take it too literally, and I imagine that there's something lost in translation. I think we were both at the Congress where he was talking about that,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, yeah, he says play the move you want to play. That's the big piece of advice, but not, he doesn't mean play into a bad ladder just because you feel like it. And I mean, and I think presumably he's saying as you're learning the game, also play the move you want to play. And he's presuming that if you get pounded for it, you're not going to want to play it next time. So in other words, it's not stubbornness. It is play what you want to play, but hopefully you learn if it goes awry.
Right. And I think that goes with what he was saying previously about just, even his thing, he had to study a lot to get there. It wasn't just, he just decided, "I'm just going to keep doing this and make it work." He had to still study and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the work that goes into it. But let's also go with the other part of it, where the philosophical side of Go. Let's talk about, well, so I have an idea for how maybe playing Go applies to life, but maybe you have something, just maybe, do you have anything about Go and stuff like that?
Um,
Be it winning,
okay,
losing, or your rank, or...
Ye- sure. And the idea is when you're a beginner or when you're a double-digit queue, just playing should be enough to get you to advance. And keep playing, keep doing a few go problems, and your rank progression, it should make you happy. But eventually that stalls. And at some point in the single digit queue, you're going to either slow down tremendously getting better or even stop without study. And at that point, you have to make a decision. Are you the type of Go player who wants to study? And that's cool if you are. Or are you the Go player who's just there to have fun, who doesn't need to get player, and that's fine. Who doesn't need to get better, and that's fine too. But I mean, that's the whole thing. You and I hang with people who are all trying to get better, and that's one of the things we're about. But that's not what everyone's about, and I really think that's okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah,
the
I think the other side of it is just like people get frustrated when they lose. And it's an interesting philosophical thing where if you're at your rank, you're going to lose. Because If you won every game at your rank, you're not that rank.
Right.
And that's a harsh pill to swallow if you think about it. The other line I like to say is like, some people spend their whole lives at 5 Dan. And you can say that's great or say that's bad. And it's an interesting philosophical note to take on it. Um, but there's that. Let me talk about the thing I talked from the game. The one thing I found from the game that sort of can apply is there's a whole idea of a good move. Yeah. And so with a good move, there's a whole idea of there's a good move that takes care of what you need right now. And a better move, however, is a move that takes care of what your problem is right now while making sure that the future is also beneficial for you. Uh, be it, you can do the move right now that makes sure your group is definitely alive when it's pretty much alive, or you can do a move that takes care of something else, or does both. Uh, this is a different talk altogether, and this is more of a lesson than a talk about the move. I have huge umbrage also with people who say a move that does two things. But well,
Cool.
that's a whole other question, and that we aren't even going to cover. Maybe next time. But
All right.
I think the idea is you can see that same in life. You can do things that can benefit you right now, or you can do things that benefit you right now and help out you in the future. Uh, and I think there's an interesting philosophical side of Go that if you can link the idea of how you play in Go, where you're doing something that helps you, but also helps you later, the same way you can do in life. Uh, that's my take on it, at least. You have anything to say?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Next question. Uh, we all know who this is. I'm not gonna call this guy out, Mr. J. But what's been the most surprising part of producing Go-related videos, and what's been harder than you expected, and what's been easier? You want to start with this one?
Yeah, you want me to do the whole thing or just the first part?
Let's start with the surprising part.
I'm surprised that people watch. Right?
Yeah.
No, and I'm delighted. Uh, I think both you and I are trying to do different things.
Yeah.
I really like your talk show type approach. I find it very interesting, and therefore, I mean, that's why I watch you,
Yeah.
and I imagine that's why others do too. And my thing is generally very short videos, and often with just a single lesson to learn from them. And apparently, it's a format that works, so that makes me happy
Yeah, I'm sort
and
of the same.
surprised.
Yeah, I'm sort of surprised as well. Just that people are watching these and find them interesting. I have done my share of advertising, so I'm glad it's worked. But I mean, a lot of it was just me just wanting to have these interesting talks, and after making a bunch of them, it gives me a good excuse to point to them and saying, "Look, all these other people have done them. Do this with me too."
Hmm.
But I mean, they're fun. They're interesting. I've learned a lot. I think there's a lot more to the world of Go than just the stones on the board. And I'm glad that, other people find them interesting and think so too. So let's go to what's been harder than you expected and what's been easier.
Me?
Yes.
Okay. Um, Actually, my general videos are pretty easy because I'll take a game that I played, so I already know the game, and I'll take a position that I played, so I know the position, and then I'll memorize various variations, and I'll go through those. So it's that's the hardest thing is just memorizing the variations.
Right.
But after that, it's just discussing, what I played, why it was wrong, show how I got punished, and then show better variations. And it turns out that format is relatively easy. Uh, Now, harder has been the AlphaGo stuff that I've done. And the current AlphaGo video I'm working on is just eating me up. It's an hour and a half long, which is ridiculous. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that. But just the amount of preparation and time and visuals and so on, yeah, I'm finding that tough. My regular videos are much easier.
It does speak to the importance and the value of teachers. I mean, just realizing how much goes into a lesson and just being able to explain this. If it's just one small thing, so be it. But if it's, really in-depth stuff, man. I mean, my teacher at Go Congress has always talked about, you know how much work I have to put in for this lesson? I was like, no, I don't. And I think now you're sort of seeing that for your own stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It actually makes me admire a lot of the other English language Go YouTubers and the fact that how much stuff they can, I want to say make up, but how much stuff they can do on the fly.
Right.
And I'm very impressed with the most popular YouTubers out there.
Cool. For me, what's been harder is just finding guests. Uh, I I have issues with just, just finding people or finding a topic that's interesting. Maybe I should just make it slightly more conversational and doesn't always have to have a point to it. But uh, even just finding someone just to talk about Go with that's the difficult part. Um, Hopefully, the more episodes I make, then it's just like, look, I've done. I think this will be 14th or 15th one now. Like, join in on the fun. The easy part is the talk. I mean, I do this anyways at Go Congress. Anyone I go who has the unfortunate aspect of talking to me, because then I can just talk for hours and hours about Go relatively easily.
Yeah, you did this before you had a video camera, I think.
Yeah,
So,
it was actually one of the reasons. You and I once were on a road trip with a pro, driving up from North Carolina up to I think not New Jersey, Washington D.C., and eventually New York,
yeah.
and we had, we talked and we had a lot of really interesting things to talk about, just approaches to Go, how he felt about Go, and I think, it's another, like I said, there's more to Go than just the stones on the board, and I think it's interesting for people to hear. All right, and the next question. This was comes to us from another guy from the AGA, and there's gonna be two parts to it because he explains it later. I said, with the explosive rise in the number of English Go videos coming available, how do you hope to see Asian countries counter this when they have full TV channels dedicated to this type of content? Goes on to say, people like you, Andrew, Nick, Hajin, and so many others have popped up on YouTube and Twitch over the last 2 years. Content is awesome and only growing. We're seeing more people join the ranks with AlphaGo. Do you hope to see Asian countries do the same sort of thing? Do you hope to see professional organizations take to Twitch or YouTube to help spread the word of the game with a live or recorded HD video? Um, you want me to start with my thoughts?
Sure.
All right. I think the one interesting thing about this, when I talked to Hajin, she said, a lot of the content that is being pushed out in Asia is pushed out to people who relatively understand Go. We'll say from a 3Q up, mostly from a high dawn perspective, because of how I don't want to say institutionalized, but how when people learn Go in Asia, they usually learn pretty young, and they progress to at least a dawn level before they stop. So the content usually caters to them. Whereas I think in America, there's a lot more beginners, and the content has to be catered towards them. And so uh, I think Asia in general is catering to a different market. And if Asia wanted to come over here, they would have to take on an easier approach to it. I think, like I said, I mean, if we took the AlphaGo thing and they went into really high dawn analysis, you'd lose a lot of people. I think if you, and so I don't think there's going to be too much competition in that way, but it is an interesting note to take away from this. What do you think?
Um, well, first of all, I guess I agree. I hadn't really thought of it that way. I think Asian content is great, but I agree it's at a high level. It's at a higher level than I think we can even do in the West. I mean, you've got the very best Go players in the world talking about positions,
Right.
and so that makes sense. And I would say that personally, I would love nothing more than to be put out of business, because there is awesome content from Asia over here, and I really hope it happens. But the one thing I want to explain or put a warning in to anyone from China, Korea, or Japan who's watching this is if you're going to try to do it for money, I don't think there's much money to be made in the West on Go content. You've got millions or tens of millions of Go players in Asia, and there's opportunity there perhaps to make money. But in the West, I think you're talking about tens of thousands tops, really.
Yeah.
And And I think the job of Go lovers right now around the world, so that's in the West and in Asia, is to spread Go. And if I was an Asian billionaire, I would go ahead and donate money to, the AGA and European Go Federation and everything, and help try to grow them so that instead of tens of thousands, there was hundreds of thousands, then maybe millions of Western Go players. But I wouldn't expect to make a dime on it. And the reason I say this is it's easy to go ahead and post the Asian content in the West, but actually going ahead and subtitling it or uh,
Voice overing
dubbing
it,
it,
yeah.
yeah, that takes money.
Yeah. And
So
yeah, the other side of it is, I mean, like, the funny thing is, a lot of Asian countries do stream. I know there's a famous one, or not, I don't know how famous it is, but there's a Korean one that during the AlphaGo period, it was like two girls that were streaming, and I think at one point it was three girls, and they had like funny Mickey Mouse ears with like "Go Lise doll" on them and stuff like that, and they were doing that. So I think they're doing that. I think the it'd be nice to see them do it here, but it is what you say that they need to treat it sort of like an investment rather than an automatic like way of making money. Unfortunately, I mean the unfortunate side of it is if you think about how big each Go Congress is, hopefully it grows, but they generally average around 500 to 600 people, and that's for the whole U.S. And that's people who are willing to make the investment to come play Go for a week. If you think
mhm.
about that and the target market, it is true that if Asia wanted to come over, that's people who are willing to spend that amount of money. So I can't see it being too much bigger, but who knows? There's I think there's also a lot of inspiration we can take from Asia. I was watching some of the Korean coverage for AlphaGo, and they had two boards. Let me make sure I'm in frame here. Two boards. One was the Lycée Dolls board, and theirs was another one. And they would play the game on the side, but they actually had marked ghost stones with like little red dots on them. So when they were playing out a variation, they would play out the variation with the red dots, so you could see how it comes out and what moves would be different. And then
That's
when they
cool.
played them, you would remove them, and then they would play the actual move. I actually thought that they had like some computer program that would be able to target that. And I was like, man, they're amazing. Turned out it was just stickers on a on a ghost stone. So that was pretty cool. I mean, regardless, I hope to see people. I hope to see people sort of be more active with it, spread some good information, spread good vibes about it, and just really cater to people wanting to play it. I know Go looks really complicated and difficult at first glance, and us talking about it probably doesn't do it any favors. But I think because, but I think every sort of game out there has a sort of learning curve. You can't really expect it, but I think even then, the fact that we have a 9 by 9 board that you can get a quick game in, you don't have to start with the 19 by 19 board. There's a good ramp up, and people can get to it easily. So I hope to see something where we can, be it from Asian companies, countries, or otherwise, that can really help people get into this. So let's go to the next question. Next question is, what's the best place to buy a Go board with legs? Uh, so it depends if you want to buy new or used. Amusingly enough, Go Game Guru made that post a day or two ago saying we're out of Go boards. We don't have enough to satisfy demand.
The whole world is out.
Yeah,
Is what he
that
said.
is
It's
great
very funny.
news. I think now might be different than maybe a few months ago. A few months ago, buying a Go board was pretty easy. There's Yellow Mountain Imports. There's Utopian. There's Kasedo, and there's a famous one from Japan called Kurokoki Goishi Ten. I think I'm butchering that because I don't remember. I think it's Kuroko Goishi Ten, but regardless, they're pretty good. They had Go boards with legs. If you're gonna make the investment to buy it, I think eBay was also a really good option. We have a guy who if he's listening, he knows who he is. He has like 4 or 5 Go boards with legs because he says it was a good deal. I was like, that's 5 Go boards. You already have 2. Why do you need 5 more? Um, so there's that. I think also on top of that, let's talk about Go boards. Amusingly enough, my favorite Go board is like this sort of like it's the thin piece of cardboard that's like got like laminate over it. For some reason, I love those Go boards. They're light,
Mhm.
they're easy to play on, and they can fit Chinese Yunzi stones. Love those to death. I have a nice Go board and nice stones, but I'd much rather play on. Oh, I have it right here. Hold on. One of these. Look how thin it is. Look how cheap. It's really cheap. But I love it to death. And
Well, you didn't tell me to bring my Go board to the video.
oh no, you don't have to do that. But no, it's the funny thing is I've played Go on a lot of different boards. The one you play on with someone else is, in my opinion, the best one. Because I think every beginner has dreams of having a really nice set, and then I've had a nice set at my house, and then I don't use it. That's actually why at our Go club we have people who love to bring their boards because you get to play on it with somebody. So definitely, if you want to buy a Go board with legs, go for that. If you have thoughts about buying a Go board, definitely buy it with the intention of trying to play it with someone else because I don't know, doing Go problems on my own set is a pain. I'd much rather use the computer. I know pros think differently. Some pros do, at least. What are your opinions on Go boards, buying them or using them?
There's a reason we let you answer this question, Kevin. I own 2 Go boards. One's a flat foldable portable,
Oh, cool.
and that's the one I have here. And then I've got a 3-inch table board,
Oh, wow.
which is in storage in California. So it's doing me no good there. And then, but I play 90% of my games online.
Yeah.
So I have no board with legs and no opinion on who does it well. So I am not qualified to answer this question.
There was an interesting thing. I think was it in AlphaGo the match? They said Lee Dahl rarely ever plays on the computer. He much prefers an actual board, and I think there's a wonderful aesthetic quality to that. This go ahead.
Yeah, but take the opposite. You've got Kujie, said who says one of the reasons he's gotten so strong is because he can play thousands and thousands a game on Taijin.
Right. I think a strange analog is the poker boom. When the poker got online, people were able to get stronger really fast because they were able to be exposed to it more, uh, as opposed to people who were only able to play, in person. There's an interesting side of that. I know for me, it was difficult to transition to playing online, and it was a strange hump I had to get over, just because I preferred playing in person.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's the other way around. Actually, you know it is because people always say it's so weird. I put the stone down, and it's not right centered in, or I have to learn how to count or move things over to count. So there's a transition in either of them. But yeah, for boards, that's that's all we have to say about that, I guess. um, Final question, one that we both don't know how to answer. Which celebrities play Go? Famously, recently, David Lee Roth came out and said, "Hey, I play Go," which is pretty cool. Uh,
Do
don't
we know
know.
his strength?
No. I don't want to make any judgments, but I would say he's probably 10Q. Uh, Now, if he shows up and says this Kevin guy said he's actually 5 Dawn and I'm owning everybody, then so be it. But I think
Hey,
uh,
David, come on, play. I'll play you.
come out
Please,
and
love to
play.
play a celebrity.
Yeah. So there's that. I think Bill Gates has famously said he learned how to play Go. I don't know if Steve Jobs has. There's Nolan Bushnell, who obviously created Atari and Chuck E. Cheese, and he showed up to one of the Go Congresses before to
Hmm.
check it out and whatever. I think it is one of the surprising things about people who play. I think if you go to the Go Congresses, you will notice. I think because of originally who it appealed to, be it the computer aspect of it or whatever, you'll see a lot of people in the programming field really take to it.
Hmm.
But I think even outside of that, just being able to learn it, it's just a really fun game. So if you do play Go and you're famous, talk about it. We'd love to hear
Yeah.
more people, say talk about it. I mean, it shows up in certain media now, be it movies or TV shows or anime or something like that. Um, we are out of questions. So, do you have anything else you want to talk about before we wrap this up?
Oh, let me just apologize to anyone who's noticed a little bit of hacking and wheezing going on in the course of this video. I've just started a cold and I thought I could power through and no one would notice, but I no longer think that's true.
Well, thanks for very much for doing that, powering through it with us. I will say, uh, I guess I'll put them here. Two small announcements. One, there are enough people who have been asking for it, which I mean by enough, there's like two or three, probably more because they haven't talked about it. But I will make a podcast version of this and all previous episodes. Stay tuned for a link somewhere either on this video or elsewhere. Uh, my
That sounds
original,
great.
yeah, my original goal with this was just to hit enough people that I could have a actual name, like youtube.com/go talks, plural. They won't let me do go talk, but go talks. I've hit that, so I'm not as inclined to advertise as much. But I might still, just for stuff that I think is pretty cool. Additionally, my next guest, you'll be the first to know this, and then the viewers will be second and onwards, is Hajin Lee. We'll be talking, I think, a little bit about AlphaGo, so that should be interesting. Uh,
Fantastic.
we should need to. I probably will make a post either on here or elsewhere about some questions, maybe because I think they did post an Ask Me Anything on Reddit, but I think maybe there's some other ones that they want to hear talk about ad nauseum or just in general. So we'll probably be doing that, and that should be interesting. Need to get Anders on here just to see. He was in shock, if you can believe it. I think.
I totally believe it.
Yeah, he was totally in shock from the AlphaGo, how that played. I mean, yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. How'd you feel about the whole thing?
Oh, I thought it was just great. It was great on so many levels. We came in wondering how strong AlphaGo would be and whether it was just going to be a pale imitation of a pro,
Yeah,
or if it was going to teach us something new. And there's just no doubt it was innovative in every single game that it played. And there's been criticism of Lee Sedol, but I just think that's ridiculously unfair.
yeah.
And and most people I know were just captivated by the whole thing. And I mean, it's a huge triumph for AI as well, for deep learning, and it's going to be a significant event in the Go world for the rest of our lives. We'll be talking about what happened last month.
Yeah,
I thought it
I
was great.
still can't believe I'm quote unquote alive to witness this, but I mean it's ridiculous to see it happen. Amusingly, you and I and some other people were watching it, and I think by game four, my heart was broken. And amusingly, I left. I think midway through the game before the amazing move happened, and just said, "It's over. I'm gonna go take a nap." And when I woke up, I was like, "Wait,
Yeah, that
you
was
what?"
kind of funny. And then we tried to get you to leave for game five.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm really amazed by it. You'll probably hear me talk about
um,
it more, but I'm
uh,
amazed that it hit 1 million views on each game's hit at least 1 million views on YouTube. Would have
in
never
English
expected.
language, that is tremendous.
Would have never expected that to happen. But there's that. Go ahead.
Oh, just one thing. That's I mentioned that the AlphaGo videos have been very hard, and this is the hardest thing I've done so far is I'm working on an AlphaGo video for lay people. So
Yeah.
for non-experts, so non-Go players and non-AI enthusiasts, trying to explain why it's significant and why it was amazing.
Yeah.
But it's been really difficult, and the hardest thing is to edit it. It's still an hour and a half long, so that's what I'm working on right now, and I'll
People
be.
will love an uncut director's
We'll
cut
see.
version, right? Yeah, that's the one thing. Oh, this is another thing I forgot to say that was surprising. I'm amazed people want to hear me talk about an hour of Go with anybody else, because usually this is just me and some other guy over some form of alcohol, and it's just like, am I boring you? It's like, hopefully not.
Yeah. It's been great so far. I was going to call it this season, but anyway, the show,
Yeah,
Kevin.
my current goal is to hit 20, and then after that we'll see. But hopefully I'll hit 20 before Go Congress. Might. But anyways, I think that's a good stopping point for us. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks everybody for your questions, and just thank you in general. I hope maybe in the next 10 batch that I do, maybe from 20 to 30, you guys will have more questions, and we can do more questions and talk about silly things, and we'll have you, Brady, come back, or anybody come back, and good luck with your video channel and stuff like that, and hope you had fun.
Hey, it was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me, Kevin, and thanks to everyone who watched this far in the episode.
All right, guys. Well, that's it from us. So bye and thanks. Bye.